When I was asked to speak tonight, obviously I spent a little time contemplating what "to thine own self be true" meant to me. And I realized that for the first 50 years or so of my life, I had it completely wrong, backwards. I thought "to thine own self be true" meant it's about me. It's about me getting what I want. It's about me. And that's exactly the opposite of what "to thine own self be true" actually means. It's not about making the truth fit my life. It's about building a life that I know to be true. All of us as humans intuitively, instinctively know the things that are true. We know that we should be kind to one another. We know that we should treat others as we would have others treat us. We know that we should be a productive part of any relationship we're in, not a burden to that relationship. We know that we should be honest. We know that we should leave every room better than we found it. We know all these things. We know what building a life that is true is really about. It's morality. It's about having morals and building a life around things that you know are true. I also think that "to thine own self be true" is about principles. If morality is the life we build for ourselves, principles are the architecture that we put that life on top of. It's what validates that life and protects it, right? So, "to thine own self be true" means to build a moral life and to live by the principles that will support it. That's interesting that I understand that, because I managed to screw my life up in both ways. For the first 50 years of my life, I didn't have any morals. And then when I finally found morality and built a life that was integrous and, righteous, I failed at following the principles that support that life. So let me explain. When I was 13, I wandered off the beaten path. I don't know why or how. It wasn't because of my family. It was in spite of my family. My family's all awesome. They're all law-abiding, good people. And then there was me. At 13 years old, I started stealing money from my parents, liquor from my dad's cabinet. I started smoking cigarettes. I was smoking weed with Roger and David behind the 7-Eleven. Before you knew it, I was doing cocaine. I was a criminal. By the time I graduated from high school, I was a full-blown drug addict and a criminal. That lifestyle, which, by the way, was not about morality or principles, lasted until I was 50 years old. By the time I was 50, I'd been arrested, 25 times, give or take. I spent a year in prison. By the time I hit 50, I didn't have any real friends. My whole family had disowned me. I was actually homeless, living in a storage unit, strung out on methamphetamine, hopeless, helpless, and borderline suicidal. I also managed in that last year of my old life to get arrested 3 times in the span of 11 months for manufacturing methamphetamine and all the other kind of stupid crimes that go along with that stuff. I woke up that fateful day in October of 2005 facing 13 felonies and 50 years in prison, at least on paper. Well, by the grace of God and the mercy of a very empathetic judge, instead of going to prison for what would probably have been the rest of my life, I got to go to a place called Delancey Street, a sort of life skills boot camp, if you will. Technically, it's called a therapeutic community. So I got to go there instead of prison for a long, long time. I stayed there 2 years because that's what the court mandated, but I voluntarily stayed 4 more. You know why? Because that place taught me the morality that I had been missing my whole life. It taught me how to live a righteous life. It taught me how to make it less about me and more about you. It taught me how to be a good person, tell the truth, be honest, be humble, be punctual. All those things that make a righteous life. All those things that are about morality. And it was awesome. I loved the new me. So I graduated, and I followed some friends of mine that also were graduates up to North Dakota and Montana and worked in the oil fields. Hard work, but obscenely good money. And I liked that. So we were all up there doing our thing, and then out of nowhere, I get this invitation, this call from a group of philanthropists in Salt Lake City that want to start a place like Delancey Street, the place that saved my life, right here in Salt Lake. Me and another guy were recruited to come down and be the founding directors of that. Can you imagine? This was the same guy that was living in a storage unit strung out on meth not that long ago. And now I'm being invited to come to Utah and help build a place just like the one that saved my life. That's what happens when you live a life that is true to yourself. Good things happen to you. And I was now evidence of that. So anyway, I came down here, I jumped at the chance, obviously. Came down here and I spent 4.5 years at the Other Side Academy. That's the name of the place. I spent 4.5 years there. So proud of what I was able to contribute. Since then, they've just taken it to a whole new level. It is really an unparalleled organization when it comes to reinventing broken lives. During the 4.5 years that I was there, I had the opportunity to meet the chairman of the board and the executive director of another program in the Salt Lake area. It was a fledgling little program, but they wanted it when it grew up to be like the Other Side Academy. They wanted to be a legitimate therapeutic community. And they felt like I was the guy that could come there and help them turn it into that. It was an intoxicating invitation. They basically said, name your salary. We'll hire you and your wife. You got to live on campus, but we'll do everything you need and support you in any way you can. Just help us build here what you guys have built down there. I jumped at the chance. It was a challenge that I could not resist. I went up there, and for about 2 years, that's what we did. We all rolled up our sleeves and worked together, and they were true to their word. They gave me all the help I needed. We worked every single day, all day long, to build this fledgling little program into something legitimate. In the first 2 years I was there 3. In the first 2 years I was there, we increased the student membership by 300%. We increased the revenue of the social enterprises that supported the organization by 12 times. I mean, we were killing it. And then, after 2 years, something happened. Almost overnight, it seemed to me. It seemed to me that the mission became less about saving lives and more about generating money. And that rubbed me wrong. I finally confronted the chairman of the board about it. And let's just say we had a spirited conversation. He was yelling things at me like, well, we can't save lives if we can't keep the lights on. And I was yelling back, we don't need the lights on if we're not saving lives. And it sort of went like that. I think it's safe to say that I was belligerent, profane, accusatory. You could even argue grossly insubordinate. I think that was probably accurate because the next day my boss came to me and said, dude, I don't know what you said to him yesterday, but I don't know if I can save you now. Bro, you've got a target on your back. And it was pretty obvious to me that was true. After that, they wanted me gone. Not long after that little conversation, they took away a raise that they'd just given me a couple months before. Then they stripped me of all my authority. Instead of being the program director, I was just a committee member of about 8 people on a committee. And the other 7 guys on the committee had been students of mine that were now junior staffers that had barely graduated 2 months ago. It was extremely insulting to my experience. Then they asked me to move off property. Said they didn't want me to burn out, even though it was a requisite of my job to get that I had to live on campus. You see where this is going? The last thing they did, the most egregious, the one that I'm still not over, is my wife lived there, she worked there too, and she had already lost her job. They took her job and moved it in-house, and so she was unemployed too. It was all part of the plan, I think. But they dug up her garden. It was a garden that was built for Nicole by the students there out of love and respect. She spent countless hours out there, raised gardens, irrigation. It was really awesome. I mean, she was out there every single day for hours, sometimes till midnight with construction lights. I mean, she was sick with it. I mean, to me, she was just growing $300 tomatoes. But to her, it was really something special. It was her happy place. And one day, when she was in Albuquerque visiting family, and I was down at Utah County doing interviews, the chairman of the board instructed the construction department to raise the garden, to dig it up, to cover it with gravel, and make sure it was done by 5 p.m. Everybody knew that when I went to Utah County to do interviews, I got home at 6. Now, a man that was true to himself, a man that lived by principle, would have probably resigned after any one of those things. Clearly, if I would have been living to my principles, I would have resigned after all those things. And even if not all those things, anybody with principle, living by their principles, would have resigned after what they did to my wife. At the egregious disrespect shown to my wife. Did I? No. No, I swallowed it. I ignored it. I made Nicole ignore it too. Why? Because I was motivated by fear. I was so scared of losing my job. I was so scared of losing my paycheck. I was so scared of losing my status. What I thought was comfort in hindsight was just really familiar misery for a year of the 3 years I was there. I sold all of that out because, what was I going to do if I lost my job? I'm just an old man that doesn't know how to do anything but scream at drug addicts about doing the next right thing. There's not exactly a big market for that out there, I thought to myself. What am I going to do? And then a funny thing happened. I kicked a student out of the academy that had brought drugs on campus, not once, but twice. And then he made some really scurrilous accusations about me. And the board, they believed him. They brought me in on a Monday morning in the conference room and unceremoniously fired me and refused to let me address any of the accusations. Took my box, got escorted across the parking lot, emptied my desk, got in my truck and left. I was devastated. I went home and basically crawled under the covers for about a week or 10 days. My wife, being the awesome, understanding woman that she is, allowed me to grieve. She understood that my heroes had become the villains in my story. She understood that my reputation had been grossly besmirched. She understood that my sense of being and everything that I had built had just been yanked out from under me, just like that. So she allowed me to mourn for about a week. Then she came in, get up! Enough of feeling sorry for yourself. We got a life to build. You need to do what you would tell your students. Drink some water and push through it. Now get up and get dressed. Let's get busy. I'll be in the living room. It really was about like that. And you know what I did? I got up and got dressed. And you know what we did? We started a company called White Hat Estate Sales. White Hat means we were the good guys. That was not an accidental name, by the way. So, 4 years later, we've got a thriving business, a great brand, and a huge following. We keep a lot of people employed. We do it with joy. We love what we've built. And we've even got about 3 times more 5-star reviews than any other estate sale company in the state of Utah. I just love the way that sounds when I say that. That's what we did. And you know what? We're happy doing it. And I'm not miserable. It's not a toxic environment. It doesn't give me anxiety every day I go to work. It's a beautiful thing that we built together, and everything we touch is joyous. So the moral of the story is this. There are things in your life that people can take from you. There are things in your life that you have absolutely no control over. But do not address those things with fear. No matter what you do, don't threaten the morality of your life. And do not ever compromise your principles. Because that's the only 2 things that nobody can take for you. And no matter what you do, if you're true to those 2 things, if to thine own self be true, if you adhere to that adage and you adhere to your morality and your principles, you're always going to land on your feet. That's my message to you, and thank you.